My name's Christian Barnes. I am the founder and lead financial coach of Do Better Financial, and welcome back to Weeconomy Wednesday. Yes, we are already halfway through June, and yes, Sunday is Father's Day. If you have not gotten a gift, go ahead and get after that. Probably skip the socks and the ties. Honestly, they don't need any more, unless they do. But give them something that they like to. You know, be a little creative. Take some time. Take daddy to brunch. Or don't. I'm not doing the restaurant thing right now because COVID, but if that's your deal, do that. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Today, I'm actually going to be telling a story that I've been promising to tell you all for quite some time. And it is the story of the leak that ate my wallet, or rather the leak that ate my husband and I's wallet. A long time ago in a land called Houston. I'm kidding. Back in November of 2019, many moons ago, we had this spot on the floor in our master bathroom that kept getting wet. And me being me, I assumed my husband had just not been closing the curtain all the way. So I'm like, hey, babe, can you make sure you close the curtain? The floor's been wet all the time, right? It's the rug that kind of goes in front of the toilet and the tub. And that's what had been wet. And so I was like, hey, babe, can you make sure you close the curtain? He's like, I always close the curtain. I was like, I thought you did, but that rug is always wet. So we keep looking. We figure out, we're like, oh, something is leaking, right? It's not one of us. It's something that's actually leaking from somewhere. So we call our landlord we currently rent, and she's like, hey, she has a deal with this, what's the word for it? It's like a warranty, come fix stuff at your house sort of place. And I can't remember the name of it right now. Bad memories, kind of just forgot it existed. And so they send somebody out and they say, oh, your toilet is leaking, do this, that. No, they say our shower is leaking, we need to put up these little shower guards in the corners and that it should stop. So we put in the shower guard. Guess what? It keeps leaking. Fast forward a little bit, we get the people to come back out and they're like, oh, it's your toilet, we need to replace the seal around your toilet. And then they say that the flange wasn't bolted into the floor. So they call our landlady, get her to approve to spend, I think it was like $500 to bolt the flange into the floor and to redo the gasket. She does it and we're like, cool. And they were like, well, the water seeped underneath your linoleum. So you're gonna have to wait, put some towels down, get some fans in here, get it to dry, and then if it doesn't, if it's not dry in a couple of days, call us back. Well, fast forward a week, it's still leaking, but by this point, it's almost Christmas, right? And we're like, look, we had planned this little party for some friends, and we were like, okay, we're gonna get through the party, because it's our master bath, right? It wasn't the guest bath was working fine. And so we are like, we'll take care of it after that. Well, throughout this period, the water has been continuing to seep. And we have one of those bathrooms in like an old 80s houses where your vanity is outside of the water closet. And the vanity area is carpeted. And so the area right next to the bathroom has been soaking up water. And we kept trying to dry it. I was going through at least a towel a day. And eventually I got tired of it. And we just wore shoes all the time. And you could start to hear I actually sent my parents a video of my husband like stomping around on our sodden carpet. Where am I from? Carpet. And so anyway, I send him this video and they're like, oh my gosh, that's bad. And so eventually after the party, my husband's like, we've got to pull up the carpet because now it's starting to smell. So we've called back the people who were supposed to have fixed it the first 3 times they came out, then have not. And this last time, my husband pulls up the carpet, the people come, and of course it's moldy and it's horrible, it smells awful, and the people come for the last time. I believe it was New Year's Eve. I think it was December 31st they come out. Now, they had looked at the toilet before. There's like a little access point behind our tub. They had looked at that, and they were like, yeah, there's water back there, and they said that that water was coming from our toilet. Once they fixed the toilet, they were like, uh-oh. They find a second access point in our front entry hall closet, shine a light in there, and they're like, you're in trouble. And I'm like, Burr? What do you mean in trouble? You mean that the leak that I've been telling you about for over 90 days is now a problem? Who'd thunk? So turns out that there was so much water sitting underneath our tub that they couldn't even see down there. And so it was just stagnant and gross. There was a film on it. And at that point, they were like, you need somebody to rip out your bathroom. And I was like, what? Not to mention, we had a second bathroom, but there was something wrong with the mechanism that allowed the water in the shower to get hot. So we really didn't have a bathroom for, we had stopped showering in the master bath. We really didn't have a bathroom for the better part of about a week. We were showering at the Y. We were going to my job. We were going to my parents. It just depended on the day. We weren't showering at home. We were literally sleeping in our living room. My husband had pulled the mattress out of the bedroom and put it in the living room because the smell was so bad. He was worried about it. So we've been sleeping in our living room for at least 2 weeks, going back and forth showering where we can, like outside of our own home for at least a week. And they come in and they say, we have to rip out your bathroom. That same day, somebody comes in, a company called Paul Davis. They suck all the water out from underneath the tub, and they tell us that the people have to come back and figure out what's wrong. I'm not going to tell you this whole story because this literally took like a month. Long story short, about 2 days after they ripped out that bathroom, we realized that staying here was not going to work. We had been off work, so it wasn't a big deal to kind of run around and shower, but my husband was about to go back to school and work, and he couldn't study here. We didn't, they eventually had to turn off the water to our home, and one of the Paul Davis guys was like, hey, you guys, do you have rental insurance? I promise you I'm getting to the financial stuff. Bear with me. This is actually a really good story either way, though. You should check, do you have rental insurance? I was like, yeah, because I'm a financial coach. Of course we have rental insurance. You should too, even though you're not a financial coach. So he's like, do you have rental insurance? They may cover what's called loss of use. And I was like, do tell, what is that? Now I had rental insurance, but full disclosure, I didn't know what all it covered. I just knew I should have it. Apparently, in most rental clauses, good ones, they will cover your stay at a hotel or some other expenses you may incur because you're no longer able to access certain parts of your home. So for us, we decided to go ahead, and I think it was like January 4th or 5th, we moved to a hotel. And at first I was like, oh man, we're not gonna be able to cover this. How much will they cover? They said they would cover up to $5,000. And I was like, bet, $5,000. The hotel, we moved into one of those kind of, you have a little kitchen sort of situation. So we would spend a little less on food since we were having to pay for a hotel. So we used our savings, paid for the hotel out of pocket. We would send the insurance company the receipts, and then they would reimburse us up to $5,000. During this period of time, our landlord, who is amazing, when you are looking for a place to rent, if you have the ability to do so, make sure, do the best you can to find out if you have a good landlord. Do a little research. Google them. They're going to research you and check your credit. Research them too. Check them out. Figure out if they're decent human beings who are going to charge you rent even when you can't live in a place. She did not. Thank you so much to our landlady. So we did not have to pay rent. She was paying people to get the house fixed, which, just to give you an idea of what ended up having to occur, I'm going to finish our story, then I'm going to tell you what happened to the house. So we ended up living in the hotel, going through the whole process of shuttling our stuff back and forth between the house and figuring out what we needed. They had to cut off all of the water to our house. So for a while we were washing at home, but when they cut off the water to the house, we had to start washing elsewhere. So I think one time we washed at a laundromat, one time we washed at my mom's. Obviously we didn't have to wash towels. That is probably the one thing that I really appreciated about living in a hotel, is somebody washes all your towels. Now that may sound small to you, but I have to wash towels at least once a week, and that's only because I'm lazy. Honestly, I should probably wash towels twice a week because we're the kind of people who don't reuse towels. Don't at me. It's just what we do. And so I enjoyed that aspect. I also enjoyed not having to clean anything except the kitchen. They clean the bathrooms. They change the sheets. They vacuum. They sweep. That was wonderful. The one nice thing about not being able to go to your house is being able to have somebody else clean up all your stuff. Granted, we paid them for it, but still. So all that said, rental insurance is the only reason that we were able to live relatively comfortably Although we spent a month, excuse me. Oh, now I need water. It's happening. Sorry, guys. There we go. Some got caught in the back of my throat. It's hot in here, but also the fan makes me cough. We just gonna sweat together today. All right. Don't worry, I ain't got the COVID. I just got it's hot. Where was I? So because we had rental insurance, they covered pretty much the entire cost of us staying in a hotel. And we stayed in a hotel for a month. That's right. We stayed in a hotel for it was actually over a month. It was I think it was like 34 or 35 days. It was a really long time. We stayed there for the amount of time that the $5,000 would cover. And that included parking our cars and obviously just staying in the hotel. So the reason we were there for a month is because after everything was removed to water and they finally shut the water off, they realized that this home was built with plumbing in the slab, which means that if you get a leak in a pipe that's in the slab, you would have to rip up said slab in order to access the pipe and replace it. So the option that our landlord opted for was to repipe our entire house. To give you an idea, we live in a townhome, and we're actually in the room right now. We're in our home office where the water shutoff access is right outside. So they ripped open the wall in my office to my right. You can't see our bookshelf, but behind our bookshelf, they ripped a giant hole. It went all the way across the ceiling into the second bathroom. It went all the way across the house into our master bath. It went through the walls and behind our kitchen and then all the way into the garage where our washer dryer is. They literally tore apart our house. The whole thing, okay? And it took them that long to redo all of the plumbing, put all of the stuff back, and then they had to have somebody come in and clean after. Now, to say I was restless is an understatement. I was told originally that this would take about 20 days, and it took about 40. So frustrated, right? I was ready to go home. I missed having my own space, and the combination of what seemed to me to be incompetence and laziness on the part of the initial people who could have told us this in the beginning, and we could have mitigated it maybe, or at least planned it better instead of it being an emergency. It was getting under my skin, to say the least. And so she paid for the repair of the home, right? Because she is the owner, we are not. And it was the one time that I think my husband was like, man, glad we don't own this house. Because normally he's very gung-ho about let's buy a house, but then he was like, glad we don't own this house, especially not right now. The quote that we got, and this was just to redo the plumbing, was about $7,000. I don't know what the quote was for her to actually finish doing the rest. I'm willing to bet it was at least another $3,000 to $5,000. So for estimation's sake, $10,000. Just boop. Right now, pay $10,000. We spent $5,000 staying at a hotel, which was reimbursed. So in the month of January and part of the month of February, we and our house incurred $15,000 worth of extra expenses. Now, how much of that did Chris and I actually have to pay? $0. How much of that did my landlady pay? Probably not all 10, because she also has homeowners insurance, and I'm pretty sure they at the very least covered the $7 to repair the plumbing. So why am I telling you this story? Well, 2 reasons. One is you need insurance. You need rental insurance if you rent, and if you own, you need good insurance. You need to read that fine print. You need to make sure that it's going to cover all of the actual eventualities that can happen when you own or live in a house, right? Or live even in an apartment. In our last apartment, we had issues where they were constantly having to like drill up the floor because there was something wrong with the foundation. And my husband at the time worked nights, and they were drilling all day and he could barely sleep. Had I known that rental insurance covered loss of use, I definitely would have stuck him in a hotel during the daytime because he couldn't sleep. We couldn't use our home for half the day for what we needed it for. Excuse me, I'm spitting at y'all. Apologies. This is why you wear a mask when you're around people. Stay 6 feet away. All right. The other thing I want to tell you is if you are ever in a situation where you have to stay in a hotel for a month or more, you can get your sales tax refunded. I did not know this. That actually allowed us to stay in the hotel for another, I think, like week and some change. One of the nice ladies at the hotel where we stayed actually informed me of this once she realized that we had been there for like 22 days. And she was like, how long did you book for? We didn't initially book for 30 days. We booked for like 2 weeks because we thought that would be how long it would take. Wrong. And so by the time we had extended to almost 20 days, she was like, well, if you get to 30, you need to let them know that they should refund you your sales tax. It's a law in Texas or in Houston. I think it's Texas, but I know it's Houston because that's where I'm at. So that's just good information to have, particularly for people who obviously this is Hurricane Alley, right? This is where we live. This is hurricane season. If you end up in that situation, that's good information to have. Or if you end up renovating your house and stuck in a hotel or a rental of some sort for an extended period of time, good information to have. The last thing I want to say is this. This happened in January and it bled into February. And so at the very end, when we ran out of our $5,000, we went and stayed with my parents for 4 or 5 days. Now, if you don't know, my parents live on the opposite side of town from where we live. And we live on the side of town where we live because my husband worked all the way at NASA, near NASA. And I work in the Galleria, which the traffic is trash. And so we live down here for proximity to those places. My parents live on the north side of town. If you're not from Houston, you're talking about an hour drive easy for my husband to work, even when it's off peak hours. And you're talking about an hour drive for me because I would go to work during traffic. Not ideal. So we were not trying to stay up there very long. We had been told that the house would be ready, so we didn't think we'd need to leave and go to my parents, but we ended up having to do that. And so while I was at my parents', you guys, a lot of you know, I stayed with my parents for a long time. But when moving back home as a married person after my parents have gotten used to empty nesting, I was ready to go, y'all. Like, I love my parents, but I wanted my space back. I wanted my food back. I wanted my version of organization back. Like, I just wanted it back, right? And I missed out on the opportunity to spend time and really enjoy my parents. And I'm saying this because shortly after that, COVID. And I missed out on some of the opportunities I had to really love on my mom. I have not been able to hug my mom now in almost 4 months. And yeah, it's working on 4 months because we're in the middle of June and this started in the middle of, I guess it's 3 months. We're right at 3 months. So I did not get to hug her for her birthday, which was March 18th. And I have not hugged her since because my mom is in the vulnerable population and the last thing I want to do is make her sick. Same thing for my dad, vulnerable population, have not hugged him in over a month. And I just want to remind you that right now, wherever you are, even though it might suck, there are opportunities that you have to love on the people that are with you. Don't miss out on them because you're trying to get to the next spot, right? I could have saved myself a lot of headache, heartache, and just had another opportunity to hug on my mom if I would have not tried to rush and move home the day that we did. When we did finally come home in February, I think it was like 2 days before Valentine's Day or something like that. My house was still a mess. I was very stressed out. I ended up getting sick. It was just a horrid mess. And had I just relaxed and stayed at my mom's for a couple of days, it probably wouldn't have been as bad. And yeah, I think that is the biggest takeaway that I had from all of this, is that even when things are crap, there's still something good going on. Try not to miss it. So that's my story. That is how a leak tried to eat my wallet and how insurance saved the day. Da-da-da-da. All right. So we have a couple of financial updates, nothing specific to the stimulus package itself. I'm sure most of you know there has been a push for Congress to address policing in America. And so they've kind of shifted gears in that direction right now, which I'm personally not mad at. However, they could have taken care of this before all of this, but they were waiting to see. And now we see that some things are going to change in the near future, and they haven't addressed them yet. One of those being that federal unemployment assistance boost. So a lot of you who are on unemployment are currently getting an extra $600 a week, right? So $2,400 a month in your average month. It could obviously be $3,000 in a month where you happen to get paid 5 times, right? So $600 a week is a lot of extra money, and it is currently set to expire on July 31st. That's going to be a huge deal, right? I was talking to somebody, one of my clients was mentioning to me, he works at like I think it's Lowe's or Home Depot, Academy, something like that. He was saying to me, it doesn't look to me like a lot of people have lost their jobs. I keep hearing about unemployment numbers, but my store is full every day. And I was like, well, you have to remember, a lot of those people pretty much have similar income, even if they're not working, because of that unemployment boost. When that goes away, eventually it will go away whether they extend it or not. But when that goes away, things are gonna look different for a lot of people, us included. $2,400 out of our income is not small. Okay, it's not small. Regardless of how much they're paying us otherwise, when you take over almost $3,000 out of it, that is impactful, right? And for houses where that money's not like extra, where that money is literally how they pay the bills and how they make ends meet, that's going to be catastrophic. So I really want to encourage you to do 2 things. Pay attention, right? Be aware that that money will go away. So don't get attached to it thinking it's never going to leave. Right now it's going to leave at the end of July. They may extend it, but even if they're due, currently the Republicans are leaning towards not even extending it at the $600 rate. They want to go down to $250 extra instead, because they want to incentivize people to try and go back to work. I get it. That's still going to be a giant punch in the gut. But just know that's what we're looking at. So if you're somebody who is dealing with looking down the barrel of losing more than half of your unemployment at the end of July, start thinking about saving, paying for things in advance. And obviously the biggest one is, if you can, and if whatever it is that you do is opening again, try looking for employment again. That brings me to the next point. The job search requirement for unemployment in Texas will return on July 7th. So after that date, when you go in to request your unemployment payment, they will start asking you again if you've been looking for a job, and they'll expect you to respond. I'm honestly not sure exactly what kind of response they need, if they need you to send them something, or if you just need to say yes or no and tell them how many jobs you've applied for. Whatever that requirement is, make sure you know what it is and that you're prepared to start making those, affirmations that yes, I am looking on July 7th. If you have not yet been able to get your unemployment benefit and you're still working on getting it at all, they will back pay you from the time that you originally lost your job, which is great. But remember, even if you get it in July and you get back paid all the way from March, once you get to that last payment in July 31st, that will stop. That extra $600 will stop, and you need to start having a record of your job search. If you don't get yours until July, even if it's from March, they may ask for records of your job search at some point. Just keep that stuff on hand. Dig it out of your email. Keep it all together. They're going to do the same thing for people who are self-employed. They're going to ask if you tried to restart your business or if you've been able to restart your business. There is a certain amount of money you can make before they lower your benefit. So if you've been able to open, but it's not as high a rate, you need to report that stuff to them, because in reality they're going to find out. And the last thing you want for them to do is find out and then you owe them the money and penalties, right? Another check-in is that the Federal Housing Finance Agency has announced that it's going to extend the moratorium on foreclosures and evictions involving single-family homes backed by the government, as well as rentals that are backed by government loans. So the original deadline was June 30th, the end of this month. It's been extended to August 31st. I don't know why I couldn't say that. Let's try again. it's been extended to August 31st. So if you have a home loan that is backed by Freddie Mac, there's a link in the description where you can actually figure out if in fact it is backed by Freddie Mac. Same thing if you are a renter in a home with a mortgage backed by Freddie Mac, if that makes sense. One more interesting little tidbit. Google Cloud is actually moving an office into the Houston area. It's going to be like off of Washington Ave above that big fancy new HEB. It's expected to open in early 2021. The reason I mention it is because I presume that there will be jobs available of some sort. I'm sure they'll transfer some people, but there might be some jobs available too. Keep your eyes on that if you're active in that space. They're going to be focused on sales of their cloud business, their cloud services to businesses. So that's going to be the focus of the offices that they're opening here in Houston. I've also heard that Target is increasing their minimum wage. So if you see some jobs opening up at Target, good news is if you work there or if you start there in July, they are raising their minimum wage, I believe, to $15 an hour, which is great because it's closer to a living wage on what you actually need to survive in America, well, at least in a city like Houston. If you live somewhere like New York, $15, like, thank you, but they probably need like 20 in reality. Last but not least, as things are opening up, as people starting to shop and move around more, please be careful. Think of others when you go out. The reason that you wear masks is so that it just shows that you care about other people. It doesn't mean that you are sick, right? We have to remember that you don't know. You could be a carrier of this disease and never show symptoms, and you could be a carrier of this disease and not show symptoms for up to 2 weeks if you're going to. But there are people who carry it and never feel sick, right? The whole point is just so that we can protect one another. And there are people who don't have immune systems to fight this thing off. You know, a lot of us are like, oh, if I get it, I'll be fine. Yeah, but if the little kid who's immunocompromised gets it, he won't. Right? And his mom has to take him to the doctor. Maybe she's a single mom and she can't go to the store and leave him at the house. And you're walking around without a mask. I'm like, oh, I'm not sick. I'm fine. You can't tell me what to do. No, we're asking you to be a good citizen. Please oblige. So if you're going out and you're shopping, I'm going to encourage you to try and focus on patronizing small businesses. Obviously, companies like Target are doing great things, and there are certain things that you can definitely go and get from big stores like that. But if you're buying gifts for people, if you're going out shopping, if you're trying to find a bike, if you're trying to find a camera, if you're looking for nail polish, right? Try to patronize small businesses in particular. And I'm going to advocate going for Black-owned businesses as well. Obviously, there's been a push around Black-owned businesses lately in the climate that we're in. I want to encourage you to go Black-owned just in general because there are awesome options that are small businesses that are owned by people who look like you. If they are people who look like you, if they don't look like you, try it out. You might find something new, a good option against a good option in place of just a general big box store or just ordering something off of Amazon, right? I ordered myself and Chris's mask from Black-owned business owners, and one of the big pushes, particularly in Houston, is eating at Black-owned restaurants. So there is a link in the description for a really cool group in Houston has put together a map, an interactive map that they're constantly adding to of Black-owned restaurants in the Houston area. There's also a Houston Facebook group for Black-owned restaurants or for Black restaurants or something like that, Eating Black, I forget what it's called. Very cool. I found this pizza place. I'm excited to try it when I go back up north because they up north and, you know, I don't be up there all the time. I may have to get my husband to grab me a pizza after church on Sunday. But we did try a place called Sleepy's Po' Boys, which is literally up the street from our house. Didn't even know it existed. Me and this cough, we're going to get along today. Peace be still. Sleepy's Po' Boys. Delicious, reasonably priced, and they sell Kool-Aid, like the kind that your mama used to make that once the ice melt, it still tastes regular because it had that much sugar in it. It'll give you the diabetes. Don't eat it every day. It's delicious though. So when you're going out, when you're trying to figure out where to take dad or where to find good barbecue, check out that list, find a Black-owned business to support, and be kind. Be kind and be cautious and aware of how your behavior affects other people. Know that what you do is not just about you, it's about those around you. Thank you so much for joining me today again on Weeconomy Wednesday. Again, my name is Christian Barnes. I hope to see you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.